I will introduce myself. I'm Haiti Danielson. I'm the president of the board of California ReLeaf, and very honored to be so. I'm also a co-owner of Bothing Treeland Farms, which is a large wholesale nursery grower in California. I'd like to introduce our other board members present. We have Rose Epperson, who's sitting at the back of the room, who's been on the board for a number of years, and Catherine Martineau, who's sitting here in the front. It's the executive director of Canopy in Palo Alto. This morning you heard from Cindy Montañez, who's our newest board member, and tomorrow you will see her again, and you will have a chance to meet Jose Gonzalez, who's also a relatively new board member at California ReLeaf. We're sad that Ray Trethaway cannot make it, and Desiree Blackman is not able to make it. They're two board members who you won't be able to meet tomorrow. So I'd like to introduce to you the sort of fact that we created a new strategic plan during the 2015-2016 year. It's a 4-year strategic plan, and we had the good fortune of working with a wonderful facilitator who had done strategic planning with nonprofit organizations and environmental organizations in the past, and he helped us move through the process really nicely. We had excellent input from all of the board members and the staff, and came up with what we think is a very good product to move us into these next few years. And environmental justice, canopy equity is definitely right in there as one of our 3 priorities moving forward. So I will hand this over to Cindy again, and she'll tell you a little bit more in detail about our strategic plan. But I think it'll be something that will serve all of our network members well.
So we're going to talk about the strategic plan a little bit, just because we want you to see it. There was a handout. Most of you probably picked it up. It looked like the pile went down. The other thing that we're going to do is I'm going to talk for a little bit about the plan itself and some of the overarching priorities of California ReLeaf, because in effect we are the umbrella organization for your network, right? So in some senses we're talking to you about what we're doing. And in addition to having board input, we also had network input, where we had a discussion after the retreat last year. That was a small informal discussion. We also did a survey that we sent out to everybody last February, and it's probably on my pictures. And we got a good feedback. So what you see here is some of the brainstorming that happened when we met with the board. We used a book called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, if you're interested in process, because Good Strategy, Bad Strategy literally talks about the fact that a strategic plan is really about strategy, not just about strategic goals. And you can see that there was a survey. That's what you all filled out last February. We had 34 responses. We like the idea of this Richard Rummeld's book, Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, because he said that strategy is like a lever that magnifies force. I tend to use the word leverage a lot, especially since we're a very small group, and I say this every year, we're 3.6 people. So we have to do leverage. We have to figure out what's the best, most impactful way we can get things done. What's the most efficient way we can get things done? The goal is what? When you're setting out your strategic plan, you've got goals, and that's the what you want, but then the strategy is how you're going to do it. We can't just go around saying we want to be the best at something. We have to say, okay, well, we're going to be the best because we're going to do it this way. And strategy is also a set of coherent actions. So we're also trying to keep it simple and focused, because with this small of a group, that's important. And when I say this small of a group, I mean staff. The network is huge as far as a coalition force. So I love this because when it talks about the coordination of action provides the most basic source of leverage or advantage in strategy, that's how I see the network being. You know, the coordination of all of our efforts to improve the urban forest is right on the money with that. So We boiled it down to top priorities. And what was really interesting when we got done with these priorities is that in a lot of ways, these are a reflection of the mission statement. And the mission statement talks about the fact that we're going to do education. It talks about the fact that we're going to do partnerships, strategic partnerships. When I say education, we're going to support grassroots efforts. And it also talks about the fact that we're going to do advocacy. So as you can see here, we talk about the network and ReLeaf. We talk about growing the diversity and capacity. Key partnerships to deepen support. We keep talking about how coalitions are important, and that's how we get things done. And we've talked about moving into non-traditional partnerships, so we're going to continue pursuing that. We're going to try and focus on particular ones, and I'll talk about that in 2 seconds. Oh. And so what are the strategies? So here I've talked about their strategic goals and then their strategies. So I'm going to show you, how do I put this? The goals are important. The goals are pretty basic, pretty concrete to what we do. The strategies are how we think we can attack these most effectively. And so I've highlighted a few. So we've got the grow the diversity and capacity of the network. Goal 1, align and understand with the resources, rich history, and innovation inherent in diverse communities. And so what are the strategies? What are the shortcuts? What are the ways we think we can get this done most effectively? I've highlighted the fact that we think we can provide pathways to the GGRF grants and job opportunities to cultivate with non-traditional groups as members. We have this opportunity with GGRF funding. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Leo did. And I wanted to emphasize, it's not just GGRF funding that is pointing us to planting trees in disadvantaged communities. Because of what's happened with GGRF funding and the designation of a California Environmental Protection Agency defined disadvantaged community, a DAC, other things are coming out in Sacramento that are saying we want to plant more in disadvantaged communities. We've just been talking with the Air Resources Board about a program that they have coming out, which has to do with, it's called SEP, and it's environmental mitigation money. And they're going to have a DAC emphasis as well. As a matter of fact, they've got some workshops coming up that Chuck is going to be getting in contact with you about. So we've had GGRF as kind of like the first major issue about this, or the first major, the groundbreaker, but this is still continuing in California. And then the other idea, it was kind of like what Leo was quoting when he was talking about who are the people that care enough that are not in our normal partnership wheelhouse that care about the environment. It was Jose Gonzalez when he was talking to us a year ago who said the Latino community has a very strong sense of conservación. They are natural partners. Are you doing enough to benefit from that? Now these are strategies. These are saying that this is the easiest way to get in. When we were talking about this, we said, well, if we're going to talk about Latinos, are we also going to talk about other ethnic groups? And we do. But if you talk about what's the biggest bang for your buck? How do you get the most done the most quickly? The Latino population is the largest population outside the Caucasian population in California. This is a natural partner. In the next year, this is a 4-year plan, we are going to see what we can do to set up a plan to work with Latino groups, doing what Leo said, which was to meet with them on what they care about and make sure that we're aligned. The other one down here is talking about increasing ReLeaf staff capacity, expand the breadth and diversity of board support for staff with additional members. And we mean that in a couple senses. We mean that in different expertises that we don't already have, and we also mean that in representation of California that we don't already have. And just a couple others. Nurture key partnerships to broaden support for the urban forest. This is something we've done all along. For this next 4 years, we're going to talk about, I think I've talked about this before, most of our funding has come from government. That's where we've been funded, and I think I said it last year. When I was hired 2 years ago, they said, you have to go out and get other sources of funding. Well, the first 2 years was rather exciting. We have 75% new staff in the last 2 years. We were moving, we were setting up different processes. And now it's time to go after that particular priority. So One Large Foundation is an entry point. That was when I was talking to a guy who's in the foundation world. He said, well, Cindy, if you want to start getting into that, you have to have one good friend, and then your good friend will introduce you to others. That's a tip. That's an idea that I've heard. I'm going to go test it. I'm not sure if that's going to work, but we're going to test it. And then in the last year, strategy B, collaborate with partners and network members to develop coordinated proposals. We've talked about the fact that as California ReLeaf, we want to be careful not to step on the toes of our network members when we go asking for foundation money or when we look for new partners. So the other idea, and this came from Jan Masaoka at the California Nonprofits Association, she said go in with people. Go in with the local person and talk about something at the statewide level at the same time as you talk about something at the local level. So that's a strategy that we're going to test out as well. Amplify advocacy. Advocacy, you know, I think you all know that Chuck was the advocacy person way back when we were a program of Trust for Public Land, so he's got this long history. So advocacy has gotten a lot more play lately. We heard, I think it was one of the second or third things that was said today, where we said we needed more money for tree maintenance. We're putting it on our priority list of how do we go after funding for tree maintenance, and that's policy, that's not necessarily foundation. So when I was talking to Chuck about should we be more active at the federal level, we've been very active recently at the California level, but what about the federal level? And Chuck said, well, one idea that he'd been thinking about for a while was engaging environmental justice partners at the federal level, as we have successfully engaged at the statewide level, witnessing, as you can witness with GGRF. And this last one, call upon network member expertise to provide training on local advocacy. That came directly out of the fact that Chuck says he doesn't really do local advocacy that well. He does state-level advocacy. And so having Cindy Montañez here talking about local advocacy, and she was talking about council members as well as state, hey, I felt like I was enacting my strategic plan. That was something in direct response. So, and that is all I'm going to say on strategic priorities and plans. That's just to give you an overview of it, and we have action plans behind this that are more detailed. At this point, I'm going to call up the first of our staff members to talk about one or two of their strategies or actions. Amelia, you're standing up. You're first. The GGRF, excuse me, I'm guilty of acronyms. GGRF is Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. That was the cap and trade funding okay? And that now on the grants that we're giving out, we have the word California Climate Investment. If John Melvin was here, he would corroborate. There it is. That's it. So CCI, that's another acronym for you. Here you go.
Put it in that thingy. Hello again. I'm the 0.6, so that's why I get to go first. And I'm not into whole numbers yet. Amelia. And, well, my full title is the Program Manager of Network and Operations. Pretty fancy. And I just wanted to share a few of the projects I'm working on now and in the months to come, and how it lines up with our strategic plan. One of the things I was ingrained in the past couple years is Arbor Week, and that's the 7th through 14th of March every year, and we work with CAL FIRE. And we do in the past we've done poster contests and had some curriculum or activities available for elementary level students. And we decided we needed to expand that a little bit more. So we we have a new curriculum and activities for the middle school level, which are, have some, great for science classes, or we used them in my Girl Scout troop just for getting the kids outside and showing appreciation for trees. And we also included some bilingual component to our poster contest last year. And we tried to start a middle school age video contest. And we're going to try that again next year, but we're not going to do that through the schools. We're going to do that directly with middle school kids using social media to try to get them to submit short little videos that we will share with the network and can use to promote trees. So, and we have a sample of our winners from last year up on the back wall. Another thing we've been working on is improving our database from the network, making sure we have up-to-date information on the network, who to contact, the right addresses. Those things go stagnant, and you guys go, new people come on, take on projects. And so that takes a long time. I don't know if you guys are going to do database, but how long have we been working on that? It's been a long time. And that's one reason why if you do change your contact person, let us know. We want to have the right person to call, and same with on our end. We want to talk to the right person to get the best information. And a big component right now has been to streamline our reimbursement process for our subgrantees. We have new forms and invoices we're submitting to CAL FIRE with the new funding sources and implementing those into our financial procedures, and that we can turn around and reimburse before we actually get the reimbursement check from the state. So that's kind of a new thing. I think we did pretty good on the Arbor Week grants, but we're with the first round of plannings for the GGRFs, they'll be soon. I'll tell you. And a really fun project which has been working with new partners is the Birds and Wildlife Project, tree care for birds and wildlife. And Andy will be talking about that tomorrow. But that's a great example of working with non-traditional partners. We're working with Audubon and the birders and getting our arborists together to come up with some procedures for caring for trees in our urban areas that will improve wildlife habitat. And I'm also a certified arborist on staff, so I like to go to a couple people here I saw recently at San Jose at the tree ID class, and so if Chuck will refer you to me for questions about tree species and placement. So I got to keep up on that to keep our capacity, got to have the great information out there. And on that note, I will tell you I do have the CEU forms for those who are looking for arborist credits. They will be up on the table afterwards. Anything else? Did I get it all?
You have to tell them the theme for Arbor Week.
Is it trees are superheroes will be our theme for next year. So, cool. Batman versus Superman, right?
Melissa's going to come. I think Chuck wants to do his thing at the end.
Hi again, everyone. I'm Melissa. I am the Education and Communications Program Manager for ReLeaf. It's my second year here. I'm still here because it's awesome. It's really inspiring to be. There's a lot of younger people here today, which is exciting to me. But it's also exciting to me, like I think I might have said last year, to just learn so much from this tree community that's been working really hard, and then to see this other generation of people who just want to take it and build on it and do new things with the new information that's coming in. So my goals tie to that a little bit. 3 main things. My number one priority is to make what you do look better and bigger and on a bigger scale. There's so much stuff I don't even know about. Just even this morning, I just wanted to sit down when all of you were talking, get all the details and tweet it and write articles about it and get the word out, because you guys have some great projects. You know amazing people. You know hardworking people. You know smart people. You are those people also. So I want to amplify our network. I'm going to do a shout out to Marjorie with Tree Musketeers, who is probably the best example I have of someone who never hesitates to send me an email and say, Melissa, can you post this job for me? Oh, Melissa, I have this radio show. Melissa, can you just spread the word out? I love getting those emails because I can do something that helps you. That's my favorite thing to do. So I think we probably have 10, 15 network members that either do that on the regular, or you do enough of your own social media that it's easy for me to just do it and creep on you like that. But please, please keep me in your thoughts if you're ever like, oh, how can we get more people to find out about this? We have our partnerships that Chuck is working on, our coalitions are just starting to get even more involved in cross-sharing postings like that and things. There's a lot of resources. I'm looking to bridge them. My second, I don't know why I'm looking back there. That has nothing to do with me. Priority is to expand our network with more diverse communities and sort of just to ask the question, who aren't we reaching and why not? Whether that's because it's just somebody who's not on a certain form of media that we use, maybe somebody doesn't read a newsletter, maybe we need to start skywriting with an airplane, but that's not that environmentally friendly either, so no. But just thinking, who's not part of this messaging and what can we do about it? How can we reach new ears? How can we make new partners? And where are they and how are they listening? And to make those steps happen. The third thing is, wow, this year I've been overwhelmed by how much research comes in on the daily basis through whether it's emails from your groups that have cool links to newsletters or cool websites you've found, or our partners at CAL FIRE and the U.S. Forest Service sending us stuff. There's great research being done, and this year's felt like a flurry to me because it's like, oh, cool thing, share it, post it, send it out, and then it's never seen again. We don't want that to happen because there's a lot more we can probably do with it. So it's a challenge for me because I'm still working on being organized, but to take that and find out how can we program this? How can we organize it? How can we share it? A really good example, again, is the Save Our Water campaign from last year. And by the way, we have 1 million flyers in Spanish now and English that we would love for you to take over there. So take a lot because there's even more boxes underneath the table. And yeah, take some. But so something like that, or it's research that's gone into a program that everyone's kind of collectively agreed on. So just how can we take this information that's coming in and what's the best way to get a handle on it and get it out there? And so it's not just a flash in the pan, a cool fact that you show your friends, even though it's good to have good tree facts out there. What else can we do with it? So those are my things. Anything else? While I'm up here, I want to know what you think because I'm in communications. We have our eval forms. I'm just going to hand them out, and if you would fill them out in the next 3 to 5 minutes, then we can collect them. That way you're kind of like trapped into filling out about today. If you didn't like it, be honest. But I'm going to pass those out while Cindy or Chuck takes over again. So thank you. Email me all your stuff, and I will share it.
So now Chuck.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Chuck again. So not shockingly, I'm probably not going to focus as much on priorities 1 and 2, though I'll touch on them briefly, but spend a few minutes on priority 3. You know, within priority 1, I think one of the things that we've been really striving to do is when we talk about providing pathways to grants and job opportunities is demonstrate and work on funding sources beyond what I think our favorite is, which is obviously CAL FIRE's Urban and Community Forestry Program. And we're going to talk a little bit about this tomorrow, but the opportunities within the realm of public funding for urban forestry or urban forestry-related projects has really grown significantly over the last several years. And that's one of the things that we want to continue to focus on is providing those opportunities to the network. And we'll get into some specifics tomorrow, but you know, as an example, in 2013, there was one funded program that was supporting urban forestry at the state level. Depending on what happens in August, at the end of August, we could have 8. So that's significant. And that's a lot of growth over a short period of time. And we've been involved in the development of a lot of those programs. So that continues to be a way where we want to provide those pathways to grant opportunities, funding opportunities. In terms of expanding the messaging outreach to new statewide partners and conferences, we've been spending some time doing that as well, and I think a lot of that has come from the partnerships that we've created that started really out of advocacy, but have grown to a kind of a larger philosophy of trying to provide more opportunities, not only for the network, but for other members, community benefit organizations that perhaps are not as familiar with urban forestry, but want to become a part of it, want to bring that to their communities. And we've done that through a series of deep outreach meetings in communities with some really strong community partners over the last several months on our grants, including 2 here in LA with Liberty Hill Foundation, with Valley Leap in the Central Valley, and then with Roots for Resilience in the Bay Area. In addition, I think as the visibility of urban forestry and what we're trying to accomplish as a community grows at the state level, opportunities have come up for us to express that messaging through invitations to speak at the League of Cities, which we did last year. 2 weeks ago, I was in Stockton with Nick on talking about the environmental justice and climate benefits that we can bring to communities like Stockton. And so we continue to do that as, again, another mechanism to raise the visibility of urban forestry and to try to meet our strategic priorities, but also to try to bring more opportunity to growing the network and growing the network with a diverse voice of other community benefit organizations. And then, okay, great, we're already on the last slide. And then I think, as most of you know, from time to time I dabble in public policy as well. And so I think, unfortunately, the vast majority of this probably falls into my camp. We'll have to rethink that, I guess. Nonetheless, we do have a lot of exciting things going on in advocacy right now, and we have a whole session dedicated to this tomorrow, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but you'll hear me say this tomorrow as well, is that this month, these next 3 weeks, could be tremendously successful at the public policy level for urban forestry. There are several new programs that are being proposed that directly tie to urban forestry. There's public policy that we're going to discuss at our photo shoot at 4:45 that I'm going to ask for your support. There's opportunities outside the traditional climate adjustments or climate benefits fund that we've been discussing for other public policy strengthening in the urban forestry realm. That would include something like a park bond that's being proposed. So we continue to focus on all these items that I just mentioned. There's going to be some kind of decision made on these in the next 3 weeks, and it's going to be incumbent upon all of us to lend our collective voice there to try to make it happen as much as possible. The other thing that's underlined here that I wanted to touch on is engaging environmental justice partners in federal advocacy. One of the challenges that we've seen the last couple of years that's a little disappointing is continued proposals, unfortunately, from the federal administration to cut urban and community forestry funding down from what I think most would consider as already a fairly small amount. We get about $28.3 million per year for the entire country for the urban and community forestry program. Proposals over the last couple years have dropped that figure down as low as $22.6 million. Now, good or bad, because of the gridlock in DC, we've been operating on what are called continuing resolutions at the state capitol for a couple of years, which means that the last figure that was voted on by Congress and approved by the president is the figure that keeps recirculating over the course of the years, which happens to be more in that $28.5 million level. We'd like to see that go up, but we face a lot of challenges there, and of course one of them is the upcoming election, and we don't know what that's going to bring. Of course we don't know what kind of administration that's going to bring. Obviously it's going to bring new leadership in the White House, and we need to be making the message right now how important it is to sustain that funding at the federal level, and that's where we need to engage a diverse set of partners to help drive that message. So we hope there's going to be opportunity there. It's obviously a critical source for all of us as we move forward in trying to advance our agenda at the state level. We need that federal support as well. So, you know, I think all of these are fairly self-explanatory, but those are a couple that I did want to touch on. I really appreciate Cindy being here today to help follow up on what we are calling the network member expertise to provide training on local advocacy. And I think one of the things that she didn't mention that I wanted to take this opportunity is that that's a two-way street. While we certainly rely on our network members to help us support actions at the statewide level through various letters, which some of them are over on our table you can take a look at. One of the things that really helps in the advocacy effort is when we can reach out to you and say, in your particular district, this member's a critical vote. This could make or break the particular budget item or bill that we're working on, and I've done that with a lot of you over the last couple of years. And we're going to continue to do that, and that's where we integrate that element as well. So, you know, I think what Cindy said was really important, but that works in reverse too. We rely on groups like Tree People and Canopy and others in the room to help deliver that voice at the local level so that we can get that state vote. And I think with that, that's kind of summarizes where we are.
if you're tracking the schedule, you will notice that somehow we are ahead of schedule. And actually, because I'm never quite sure how the schedule will work out, there was one thing in here that we don't have in here right this second, and so we're going to pop it back in. And I use the word pop very deliberately. Oh, I'll talk about it. Let me finish one other thought. I have to say, before I forget, because I get so excited about everything else, I just have to say, after being at California Relief for 2 years, it has been absolutely fantastic. We are so happy with the team we have. We all came on board. Well, Chuck, as he says, is the old man. He's been there the longest now, since 2010. But the rest of us have been there now less than 2 years. So we're really pleased with how things are going. I am so thankful to having such a great staff, and I would like you to give them a round of applause because they worked really hard for this conference. And I also want to give a round of applause to Nancy and Deb from CUF because they were right there with us, helping us with everything that had to happen here, from sponsors to silent auction to everything else. So thank you very much to CUF.